Hi, it's Don from Hitman Home Services. Today I'm going to show you how to build some sturdy sawhorses out of some repurposed wood. So here is some of the repurposed wood. I pulled this off of a job where they had used it as a wainscoting. So this is a knotty pine board and there was glue on the back side. So that's kind of a drag, but I'll just have to remove some of the glue. I won't have to remove all of the glue. The glue is kind of a pain, but that's repurposing it. I figured out with sawhorses, it doesn't really matter if there's some glue on the boards, and I'll put that on the facing end. So here's what you're gonna need. There's a saw. You're going to need at least a saw of some kind, a chop saw or a table saw. You might need both depending on if you're going to have to rip some boards lengthwise. I did have to rip these boards, so I ended up with quite a few. This is probably going to be an extra. I might use some of this up in parts of the sawhorse project. This is the boards that are already laid out here for the sawhorse project, and here's what you're going to need for the sawhorse project. Nail gun is really handy. You can do something by hand or screws, but it's really nice to have a tack nailer to tack things together. You're going to need glue, some screws, of course. I've got these deck screws that I've kind of salvaged. I'm going to use those. And you need some coffee, of course. And that's basically it as far as that tape measure, basic hand tools. So here, I did a little mock-up yesterday of the main beam of the sawhorse project that we're going to do. So basically the main beam consists of 5 components. You got one board is basically the top, and then you've got 2 sides and 2 ends. So that's the thing. The first piece you want to cut is this piece here, and you have to have 2 angle cuts facing each other like this in order to get the board spread like that. Okay, so now to do our cuts, first off, you always want to unplug your saw. Unplug your saw. Before you start adjusting the blade. We want to tilt this blade, and I think it's about a 30, so there's an edge here. So you want to note where your angle is set at. So more like a 15-degree angle. Regardless, you can adjust this component a little bit. It's going to make your legs spread farther apart on your sawhorse. So in this instance, I want to use this as the finished side, as the top side facing out, not the glue side. So you just mark it here. Make sure you're cutting the right angle on the board. But so you set your fence up here, run your board through this way. So now we just got to cut the other angle. I cut all 4 boards. I'm making 2 sets of sawhorses, so that's 4 horses total. So we need 4 boards. I cut all 4 the angle this way. Now I got to set up the fence for the other angle and move the fence that way a little bit. So once again, we got to unplug it here, and then this direction. So the angle faces the fence. Because I want the finished side to face up. we want to look at it like that. So it basically looks like a little crown. So back on the next component. So we got all of the top boards cut, which is this one. Cut those. There's 4 of those. I'm making 2 sets of sawhorses. So now this board, there's 8 pieces of these. It's called, we'll call those stretchers. They're the same length as the board we just cut. And typically you don't need to do anything to that board. You can just butt it up against this top board at that angle. But in this instance, I've got this glue. So what I'm going to do is cut a little dado here. Just take this glue off of there. So I'm going to go in and just leave it a little bit proud. It'll also give me a little bit of an index point when I glue up to it. So it's not a bad idea for a joint. And you just basically set your blade up. I'm unplugged here, so got to set this blade back level. You run the board through this way. And when I glue it up here, I can index off of that. So it's giving me a nice clean little joint there. So for our end pieces on our box, you can kind of see it set up over there, but for this piece right here, this piece, so basically you set your miter saw at 15-degree angle, the same angle as you set your saw for the top board, and then you just cut the angle like that, and then you flip the board over, you lay your piece on there like this. I need 8 of these, and then you can just line your blade up like this, push that against the fence, move that one clear. All right, so here's our little pyramids. And we got, I assembled one. Here's our little pyramids. We got, there's 6 of these. It's best if you just cut these a little big and then cut them, trim them to size, and I'll go through that on the assembly in a later video. So as far as the leg goes, the last component we need to cut is the leg, and basically it's all I'm doing is cutting it to length and then cutting the angle off at the bottom of the leg at 15 degrees. So I marked these legs because I want these, the glue facing in, of course. So I marked these, so I made sure that I cut the right direction, the angle the right direction. But basically, I got my saw set to 15 degrees again. That's the what we'll use here. And I want a 36-inch, approximately a 36-inch high sawhorse. So I'm going to mark this at 35 1/4, and then I've got a 3/4 inch top. This butts up, so it'll be right around 36, a little bit higher than 36. And so basically you just mark that X there, set your saw at 15 degrees, and cut it off. And that's it. So the legs are very simply